In Bangladesh, the situation has become increasingly difficult for minorities, particularly Hindus, following the fall of the Sheikh Hasina-led government on the 5th of August. Since then, at least 49 teachers from minority communities have allegedly been forced to resign. Some have even faced physical attacks, according to multiple media reports. From policemen to bureaucrats to now teachers. Why is the interim government, or rather forces close to them, going after those perceived to be close to deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina? Joining me to discuss this are Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, Saleem Samad, senior journalist from Dhaka, and in the studio with me is my colleague Deepak Bhadana. I want to start by asking Saleem Samad this. Saleem, very disturbing images coming out of Bangladesh in the last couple of days. Teachers being attacked, surrounded, beaten up, forced to resign. What's going on really? Why are teachers now being targeted?
Unfortunately, everybody is targeted. You are not talking about only teachers. A journalist has also been kicked out from.
Of course, they've been murdered as well. Yes.
And then no journalist was not murdered. I'm sorry.
I'm referring to the body of a journalist who was found in a...
She committed suicide. I did the investigation.
Yes, okay.
Reporters Without Borders did an investigation, and it was found that she had committed suicide because she made a Facebook note of dying before few hours before she plunged into that lake. That's another... I can see the Indian media is making a lot of noise about this woman journalist, this poor woman. Okay. I'm not talking about only the teachers, but it happened all over all professions. We cut across the doctors, engineers, even lawyers, for example. They were kicked out from the court. They cannot defend their lawyers, their clients.
Right.
This has also happened in 1971. After 16th of December 1971, all the who had worked or served during the 1971 means the Pakistan army, Pakistan, erstwhile Pakistan, they were all kicked out of all the departments, from top to number one to down one. Even the journalist was also kicked out, or it happened in after 16th of December. And it continued for more than a year. So I am afraid that whether this phenomenon will continue for a year.
My God, another year of this, Saleem Samad. Ambassador Mukherjee, another year of this? I mean, why is Bangladesh literally eating itself from within?
Well, Sandeep, thank you for having me on your show. In response to what has just been stated by my Bangladeshi interlocutor, and my parents come from the same region, Dhaka, Bikrampur, I would like to point out that what happened in 1971 was a reaction to the genocide by the Pakistani army on unarmed Bangladeshi civilians of East Pakistan then. The gruesome murder of university professors, for example, in Dhaka University, where my mother studied, and the strong reaction of the people of Bangladesh to this genocide, as a result of which, it may be remembered, that 10 million East Pakistanis of different religions came and sheltered in my home state of West Bengal. What is happening now cannot be compared in any way, either in scale or dimension, first of all, but also by reason of there is no logic in throwing out teachers or lawyers or whoever else has been labeled just because of their religion, because the very creation of today's Bangladesh was based on the language agitation that the Bengali language, culture and civilization matter much more than religion, and that religion is an intrinsic part of that language, culture and civilization, which the then West Pakistanis refused to accept, and in fact looked down on East Pakistan as being inferior because they would recite the Quran, for example, in Bengali and not in Arabic, that they looked different from what they would call them the Ashrafs, etc. And it was a semi-racist in approach. What is happening now is that there seems to be a popular anger against the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who on her own decided to take refuge in India on the basis that she would be then moving to some other Western country, which has not yet happened. And in return, the popular anger against the former Bangladeshi Prime Minister
Yes.
seems to have transferred itself to the hapless Bangladeshi citizens whose religion happens to be that of Hinduism or Buddhism, etc., leading to, for example, the desecration of the statue of Rabindranath Tagore, who composed Amar Sonar Bangla,
Yes.
or burning down of the ICCR, or the burning down of the ISKCON building, etc. This irrational anger, one would have hoped, would have died down by now. So, what is of concern, I would reiterate to my Bangladeshi interlocutor, who perhaps his ancestors, like mine, lived in the same green and fertile fields of Dhaka Bikrampur, is that this irrational anger should be immediately controlled, law and order should be reinstituted, because Bangladesh, like India, cannot change its neighborhood. So Bangladesh is dependent on India for so many things, including electricity, power, food, etc. In return, we depend on them, for example, for good fish, which has completely dried up, I'm sorry to say, in our fish market in Chittaranjan Park in Delhi, etc. These are two countries which are bound to each other. We cannot change our geography, we cannot change our neighborhood. We have to live in peace and harmony. And the best way to do that is to stop revenge killings, to calm things down, and to make the people of Bangladesh understand that while they are perfectly free to change their rulers, they should not take out their anger on hapless, innocent citizens of Bangladesh, not citizens of India. If they are citizens of India, tell us, we'll take them back. But they are your citizens, and you have to protect them.
Right,
Sandeep.
absolutely. Very, very, very strong statement there from Ambassador Mukherjee. But I'm going to ask Saleem Samad one more question before I go to my colleague Deepak Bhadana in the studio. Saleem, you know, the fact that Ambassador Mukherjee mentioned that it is Bangladeshi citizens who are being targeted, just as it was East Pakistani citizens who were targeted in 1971. It led to a exodus of refugees. There was a genocide. There were 10 million citizens who were pushed out into Indian states, leading to a destabilization of the situation. Do you see something similarly happening in 2024, more than half a century later? Because if minorities are targeted, it stands to reason that they will leave the country and they will move into states near Bangladesh, which is the Indian northeast. And that has a potential of destabilizing India's northeast. There are already a lot of statements coming out of regional political parties saying that they will not tolerate any such influx of refugees. Is there any fear of this actually happening now, given the fact that these attacks on minorities have been unrelenting from what we've been seeing here in India? Saleem.
Thank you. First of all, I don't want to continue where she has left, Ambassador. In 2008 and 2001, when Khaleeda Zia came to power, she also did the same thing. When her party took control of the government, her government had literally flushed out all the journalists, doctors, engineers, bureaucrats. You just name a profession. They were kicked out from all the sections of the department, even from the private company. So similar thing has been done when Sheikh Hasina came to power in 2009 January. You have to, if you want to really debate on this issue, you also have to take this also into account. 2001 October and 2009 in January. Both the leaders, both the political, both the women, both the Begums did the same thing, doing purging. So this is a legacy, I cannot stop it. But this is definitely very unfortunate. But when you are talking about migration, yes, it is very interesting that Dr. Ranavit Samadda did a very interesting study on the border and the border migration. And she, according to his, book that I have read, and many of you must have read, they have mentioned that the majority who has migrated from Bangladesh were Muslims. Or he has to challenge Dr. Ranavit Samadda, or to bring him in the studio. Majority are Muslim. Right now, majority have crossed the border after the change of, or the deposed Sheikh Hasina on 5th of August. Majority who had crossed to the border, they are Muslim. They are all Awami League leaders, Awami League, different level of leaders, have crossed to the border. They have gone through Assam, and of course they have to pay a hefty amount. even from the Sundarban. They have escaped to the Indian Sundarban. So the porous border, despite this barbed wire, you cannot stop it because they had paid more than 10 lakh, 20 lakh, even 1 crore of Bangladesh rupees.
Right. It's alarming. It's alarming what you mentioned, Saleem Samad, the fact that it is that refugee, influx continues into India. And Deepak, this is something that we've been discussing here very closely. The fact that how this influx of, Bangladeshi politicians or refugees has the potential to destabilize the Northeast. You buy this thing of what Saleem Samad has been saying, that it's actually just a cycle of retribution, that every time a Begum comes to power over there, they flush out all the previous regime thing, or is this much more insidious this time around? The fact that minorities being targeted, Bangladesh possibly becoming another Pakistan, God forbid.
Let's look at it in the two parts of the problem, in your question. As Mr. Samad has said, yes, there is a definitive pattern in Bangladeshi politics. The statement that says that winner takes all. So Bangladesh seems to go through these cycles. Every time a new government comes,
yes,
there is retribution and people are kicked out. And that seems, these leaders then come with new promises which they fail to live up to sooner or later. And then the older regime comes back, they do pretty much the same thing. So there seems to be a pattern in Bangladeshi politics. And it is only up to the Bangladeshi people to rectify the situation, to
right,
ensure peaceful transfer of power, for one thing.
Yes.
Now, coming to the second part of the question, while there may be a lot of, shall we say, grievances against the previous regime,
right,
and even people who are seen to be beneficiaries of the previous regime, or for that matter, people who were proponents of that regime.
Right.
It can, however, not be denied that a lot of times there are elements of society that go out and target minorities as and when such situations occur. So I wouldn't be surprised that in the year 2000, in 2009, as Mr. Samad says, the minorities would have been at the receiving end. And for what reason? Just because they are vulnerable. So I think it is pretty much up to the Bangladeshi state to solve this issue.
Right, it's up to the Bangladeshi state to solve this issue. There doesn't seem to be a state, Deepak, from what we see now. The caretaker government has been unable to crack down on this violence. But Ambassador Mukherjee, the Prime Minister is going to meet the head of the caretaker government in Bangladesh, very shortly at the BIMSTEC forum. What do you think the Prime Minister is likely to convey to him when he meets him? He's raised the issue of the attacks on minorities, on Hindus, in his conversation with the President of the US. What is he likely to convey to the head of the caretaker government, the chief advisor?
I think he is likely to convey that India played a very important role in the creation of today's Bangladesh, because India believed that the secular ethos of Bangladesh, and it's still a secular country,
yes,
is a concept that India believed in. And the plight of the 10 million East Pakistani refugees, both Muslims and Hindus, who had turned the whole of Sialda railway station like into a massive refugee camp that we handled on our own with no foreign aid, was not a tenable situation for India, and therefore we had to help the Mukti Bahini to liberate and help the refugees to go back. Right. Today's Bangladesh was, despite whatever the Bangladeshi people have legitimate right to criticize their former Prime Minister, Bangladesh was on a rapid development track. It had come out of its LDC status. It was, in fact, being held up by many Western entities as an example of a developing country which was developing, and in some aspects, faster than India. Its educational indices were better than India. Okay. Now, in such a situation, you have a messy transition of power, but you have a very respected Nobel laureate, 80 plus, who is trying to reassure, but his reassurances are not being respected at the grassroots level, or by the very people who he is supposed to trust, because the political parties are getting impatient and asking him when does he intend to hold elections, while he is trying to say that he is trying to create the necessary conditions by which free and fair elections can take place. Under those circumstances, given the fact that Prime Minister discussed in great detail the attacks on Hindus and minorities in Bangladesh with President Biden and will surely continue to do so with Biden's successor, whoever it is. I am confident that he would tell the present head of the Bangladeshi government, Muhammad Yunus, whom I have met many times when I was ambassador in UNESCO, he's a very respected figure, that the kind of public anger that is rising in India, not just in West Bengal, my home state, or the Northeast, but all over, including in North India,
Absolutely.
it cannot be restrained forever.
Right.
If the attacks on Hindus and the targeted killings of Hindus and the manner in which Hindus are being targeted and are being chased all over, the manner in which Hindu women are being told, convert if you want to be safe, this kind of situation one did not expect ever to happen in Bangladesh. It could have happened in Afghanistan or Pakistan,
Yes.
but we know much better of Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
If it continues in this manner, and given the fact that yes, we are a functional and functioning democracy with very strong armed forces, we will have to secure our frontiers much better than we are presently doing. It's not a question of cutting the fence.
Yes.
We will have to win regiments of the Indian Army and secure the entire border from the northeast to West Bengal, including Chicken's Neck. I don't buy the story that people are just buying us for 1 crore rupees. I would like to tell my Bangladeshi colleague that I don't know about his country, but India is not for sale. India's BSF is not for sale. India's armed forces are not for sale. We will do what it takes to secure our border. We will do what it takes to stop it. And if Muslims are crossing over, then he should reflect that the conditions in Bangladesh are such that even Bangladeshi Muslim citizens don't feel safe. So then what would be the condition of Bangladeshi Hindu citizens, Buddhist citizens, Jain citizens, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'm afraid we're completely out of time here, but thank you very much for joining us here on this broadcast on talking about the attacks on minorities in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and of course the attacks on teachers and journalists. This is of great concern for us here in India because of the potential influx of refugees from Bangladesh. That's a story we'll be tracking very closely over here. Thank you for watching.